Well, we're almost wrapped up. We're now talking about the last section of the book, the last 50 or so pages. First, I want to talk a little bit about, this is Justice Marshall was our first Supreme Court justice. And he made a statement, a ruling. The government of the United States has been emphatically turned a government of laws and not men. Will certainly cease to deserve this high appellation if the laws furnish no remedy for violation of vested legal right. Basically, what he's saying is that we have certain legal rights, but if government opposes those rights and tries to take those rights away, and we have no remedy in the legal system for challenging government, we're really in a bad position at that point. I kind of paraphrase it myself. When we consent to the government by men and not by laws, our rights and liberties are no longer ensured, becoming subjected to the passing whims of unaccountable bureaucrats. One area that kind of comes to mind is Obamacare. I think I read today there's over 700 different locations in Obamacare where it talks about the Secretary of Health and Human Services has the discretion of basically making up the rules as they go. And I remember reading recently that there was a section of Obamacare that was about 2 or 3 paragraphs long. That's now turned into about 450 pages of additional regulations. So this is an area that we, as knowing people and people that understand the Constitution, we have to stay on top of this. Not allowing czars and regulators to replace our elected government officials. Instead of giving you a reading assignment, see now we're pretty much wrapped up, I thought I'd give you a listening assignment. If you go to my website, reclaimliberty.us, I have a button on there that says podcasts. And I have 2 podcasts, about an hour long, with the Jason Lewis Show. And it's really quite good. He talks about states' rights versus federal rights. And so I'd encourage you to take a listen to that. So again, reclaimliberty.us is my website. Also, some of the Tea Party members attended an event at NAU not too long ago where Thomas Woods did a presentation on states' nullification. I went in and recorded it that evening, and I encourage you to take a listen to that as well. Yes.
I wish I could remember the person in the Obama administration who said this, but we were mentioning Obamacare.
Right.
Somebody high up in the administration, and I wanted to say Geithner, but I could be wrong, actually made the comment that the government could force people to buy wheat. Now, I don't understand how he could have said something like that, but I just read that today, and it had something to do with, yes, we can force people to buy insurance, and we can force them to buy wheat. I'm thinking to myself, this is pretty incredible.
The argument that the attorneys generals have basically been making to the various courts as we're working our way up to the Supreme Court is that the legislation, the Obamacare legislation, basically is penalizing people for inactivity. So the Commerce Clause has been used in terrible ways in the past. For example, if a farmer decided to grow enough wheat for himself, or maybe even just for his neighbors as well, that's basically staying local, it's not even leaving the community, and certainly not crossing state lines. Judges have ruled that that falls under commerce, and have basically said that the government can then come in and tell that farmer how he can grow his product, put regulations upon it. So we need to fight back, is what it boils down to. A couple other things I want to mention real quickly. I carry a book of some sort with me wherever I go, so I can make notes. And so I'd encourage everybody to carry something with you all the time. If you're listening to the radio, you hear something that's inspirational, that, something about the Constitution, what have you, jot down some notes. And then what I normally do is I then transpose those notes into a computer file, like a word processing document. I think in the last 6 months I'm up to about 300 to 400 pages of notes that I've transcribed. The other thing, Roger's going to place on the website a Word document that you can download. It's about a 25-page document I've created that whenever I see a word or a phrase, and typically a word in a website, I go ahead and capture its meaning and put it into a Word document. And so it's kind of like a vocabulary list, if you will. So take a look at that as well. Go ahead and download it and please utilize it and add to it. All right, we're talking about Bill of Rights and external limitations of power. We have internal limitations of power. In other words, it's part of the natural grant. It talks about in the grant, in the body of the grant, what the limitation is on the government. You have quasi-external limitations. Usually these follow a grant. So a grant is specified in the Constitution, then it talks about a limitation. And then external limitations usually apply to 2 or more grants. And those can be pretty much anywhere within the Constitution. Many of the restrictions within the Constitution talk about they apply to all 3 branches of government, not necessarily Congress only. But a lot of them do apply directly to Congress, the majority of them. You can't read that, but this is Article 1, Article 1, Section 9, and it's referred to in the book as kind of the mini Bill of Rights. And it talks about migration or importation of persons, and that kind of goes back to the days of slavery. The writs of habeas corpus, which is basically a right to a trial. Bill of attainder or ex post facto laws shall not be passed. Direct taxation is only in proportion to census or enumeration. In other words, that if you're going to collect taxes, it should be based upon the number of people living within a region. Taxes or duties shall not be laid upon articles that are being exported. So in other words, federal government doesn't have that right to tax things that somebody's exporting out of the country. No preference shall be given to any port or state, so that has a lot to do with commerce, that no particular state will get, let's say, lower duties than another port. So again, it's kind of a fairness across the United States. The Constitution is trying to have equal treatment of not only individuals, but equal treatment of governments. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury unless it's appropriated. In other words, that you have to have a law of some sort appropriating that money before the money can actually be taken and spent. And no title of nobility or any payment can be given to a federal office holder unless it's approved first by Congress. And actually, the payment is approved by Congress, but no title of nobility can be granted to individuals within the United States. And again, that's a fear of what we had under Great Britain. We're going to hold questions until the very end. Most of the unamended Constitution's external limitations are found in the section that I just talked about, Article 1, Section 9. The rest are scattered throughout the Constitution. The anti-federalists felt that the limitations were insufficient, and that's why they wanted a Bill of Rights in addition to the Constitution. They, as I mentioned earlier in the class, they actually upheld the ratification of the Constitution. They basically said that they were not going to ratify the Constitution unless there was a promise of a Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights occurred, Madison had 12 amendments that he originally wanted added to Article 1, Section 9, and there was objections to him adding them. He ended up adding them later as our Bill of Rights. There's a fear that enumerated powers could be abused. For example, a punishment could be like high taxes against